For years, Katt Williams spoke in whispers that seemed almost impossible to believe. He warned the public about shadows lurking in the most powerful corners of Hollywood. He tried to warn us, people would say later, as old clips resurfaced showing him pointing out connections others refused to see. Now, decades after those warnings, something has shifted. Questions began to surface. Old interviews, headlines, and documents are resurfacing, suggesting that the industry may have known more than it admitted. And as the Epstein files continue to unfold, Hollywood feels a growing unease, a sense that secrecy and power can no longer hide in plain sight.
On a list, you can list the fucked up things that have happened in your life, and you can put that. As children, we all take to talking with ease. And so the fact that later on in your life, you be one of the people that could say, I talk for a living, is it's to act like it didn't happen.
Jay-Z's name began appearing in flight logs and documents linked to Epstein's network. Old interview footage resurfaced.
It's life. Everything is life. It happens for you. Everything is for your greatest good. No matter what it looked, they say you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? You can't control the future. I mean, you can control it up to some point. You can't control what others do. You can't control anything. Someone can run a red light, and that's the end of everything. You only can control what you can control. So things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Showing him interacting with some of the most powerful figures in the industry. Public reaction was immediate. Some fans defended him, insisting these were casual associations. Others...
I say this about the movie, that it's like really hard to watch, but important to see.
Yeah.
I've seen...
Others noticed patterns that seemed more than coincidental. Some believe these connections were not just chance encounters, and as more details emerge, the lines between private life and public perception blur. The questions remain: what did he know, and when?
In your thoughts on Donald Trump and what it means for mass incarceration?
You know what? This is a labor of love for Jay, and as a result, he's my friend. We're here to talk about that and nothing else.
Well, then can I ask you about mass incarceration? And do you think the movement is... Okay.
Naomi Campbell's name also appears repeatedly in flight records from the same period. Public denial clips have surfaced showing her distancing herself from any wrongdoing. Yet online forums and past emails have fueled speculation.
I was shocked by this article in Mail on Sunday. I've always said that I'm not a saint, that I am a work in progress, but I will not be held hostage by my past. Passion for Relief is something that came to my mind in 2005. We started with Hurricane Katrina. We've helped the floods in Japan. We've worked with a great association, Save the Children. We worked with Sarah Brown, the former Prime Minister's wife, Gordon Brown's wife, White Women Alliance, maternal health, Ebola crisis, the floods in UK. I mean, it goes on. I'm not going to stop, and I won't be undermined or have my team be undermined for all the wonderful and great work and for all the people that have collaborated and supported the cause that Passion for Relief chooses each year.
Why would anyone be surprised to hear that you're being honored as a humanitarian?
I mean, it was again very disappointing to hear and to see the way they wrote about that. To focus on the negative and say this is a vanity charity. There's no vanity about it.
Do you think it's fair to draw you into the Charles Taylor story when you were only a witness? After all, the picture they used clearly shows someone cropped from it. Presume that was President Mandela?
Yes, I do think it's unfair. For me, it's a distorted piece of journalism, and I do love great journalism, but this is a direct character assassination, and it belongs in like an Orwell book.
If a story like this doesn't take into account the person being interviewed, does it then become fake news?
Well, it's pretty one-sided, and I don't want to get into that phrase, but I feel if you don't give the person the chance to speak for themselves and respond, I mean, this is a pretty established newspaper. You should give the person the right to respond to what your allegations are.
The paper does manage to make it clear that you were not aware of Epstein activities. Did you know who he was?
Yes, I knew him. I was introduced to him on my 31st birthday by my ex-boyfriend Flavio. He was always front and center at Victoria's Secret shows.
Did you suspect what he was doing?
No. And what he's done is indefensible. And when I heard of what he'd done, it sickened me to my stomach, just like everybody else. because I've had my fair share of sexual predators, and thank God that I had good people around me that protected me from this. I mean, right now I stand with the victims. I can't, you know, they're scarred for life. For life.
How many people do you think you have rubbed shoulders with, as the Mail on Sunday put it?
I've rubbed shoulders with hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, I find it extraordinary that of all the hundreds of thousands of people that I've stood next to take a picture at a public event, they've only chosen these few. It's going to be very difficult to be photographed at public events because you're going to think if you do take a picture, it's going to be taken out of context and used in a negative way. So it's going to be sad for everybody.
Has this article made you think differently about the state of journalism today? And did you think this one-sided way of reporting could then be considered sinister?
Yes, I do. I mean, as I've said, I've met some great journalists and writers and done some great interviews over the years. If anyone who saw me do Newsnight with Emily, I mean, they were tough questions, and I don't mind being asked tough and strong questions. What Emily did was stand-up journalism. That's an example for me as a stand-up journalist. Straightforward, tough questions, and I was happy to answer them. I cannot put this in the same boat and say this is journalism, especially as I was not given the chance to respond. It's not what I would have expected.
What would your conclusion be about this article?
Let's call it for what it is. This is a character assassination, and we can all read between the lines and know why they keep coming at me.
Documents show interactions that contradict public statements, raising eyebrows in unexpected ways. Questions began to surface about how much the public really knows and how much remains hidden behind closed doors. Bill Gates admitted to some meetings with Epstein in past interviews, yet public denial narratives emphasize limited interaction. Documents suggest more, raising questions about what really happened behind the scenes.
I regret doing that. He had relationships with people he said, would give to global health, which is a interest I have. Not nearly enough philanthropy goes in that direction. Those meetings were a mistake. They didn't result in what he purported, and I cut them off. That goes back a long time ago now. So there's nothing new on that.
It was reported that you continued to meet with him over several years. And that, in other words, a number of meetings. What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. And I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy, very proud of the work of the foundation. That's what I get up every day and focus on.
Tension between public perception and private associations creates an uneasy gap, one that few dare to step into. People notice the inconsistencies, and speculation grew. The narrative is no longer simple, and every statement is met with scrutiny.
The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
The problem is some of the things that he has sent and some of the information about other people that has come up in those files has been true. Why would he do this and say this about you, do you think?
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
It comes at a time where trust in institutions is low and demand for charity is high. Donald Trump ending the USAID program, cutting billions and costing lives.
There are already hundreds of thousands of deaths from the money being cut off.
The Gates Foundation stepping in. Already $100 billion has been spent, and now the Microsoft mogul and his friends are pledging to spend roughly $200 billion more before closing the foundation in 20 years.
I hope that, when people read about malaria in the future, they go, what is that? What was polio?
And at a speech at Melbourne's Doherty Institute, the challenge was laid to Australia's medical researchers to lead the way.
You're drawing on the incredible talent that's here and making sure it has impact.
Mr. Gates rode the revolution as technology became tech. Now he sees AI revolutionising healthcare for some of the world's poorest, but warns there'll be job losses in countries like ours.
I think it's a responsibility of the people who work in the field to say to the society at large and the politicians, hey, this could really be disruptive.
The other big change is social media. Australia has banned social media for under 16s. Is that a good idea?
I think it's a good idea. I know it's not an easy thing to implement. I think it's a favor to the world that you'll study. We overprotect kids in the real world. We don't let them go out and do things, but we underprotect them in the digital.
Chris Tucker's private jet trips were explained publicly as humanitarian missions, yet online discussions began to question these claims. Footage of his public appearances from that era stands in contrast with flight logs and records that have since surfaced. Interview clips show him denying any knowledge of wrongdoing, but public skepticism lingers. Some believe these trips were more complex than they appeared, and questions began to surface about how much power can shape perception in Hollywood.
But K-File's extensive reporting now shows the two shared a close social circle for nearly 2 decades, from private jet flights to high-profile parties, and that's only part of the story. Photos, flight logs, and court records help reveal how long their personal history really was.
You a story of how close these guys are. Look at just a few of them. This is in 1993, for instance. This is the same year that we found as well that Jeffrey Epstein attended Donald Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. Trump flew on that plane 4 times with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell between Palm Beach, where Mar-a-Lago is, and where Epstein also owns a home. Let's fast forward then to 1994. Trump flew from Palm Beach to Washington, D.C. with his then wife, Marla Maples, his daughter, Tiffany, and a nanny before they returned to New Jersey that day. In August 1995, just he and Eric were on board with Epstein and Maxwell again. They flew from Palm Beach to Teterboro in New Jersey. And then in 1997, January 1997, Rich. And then we wrote in his book that somebody named Mysterious Jeffrey had called him, and that you could see it right there. That's the passage from his book. He says Jeffrey calls in, but there's actually a lot of activity between these two in 2004. One of the things that was seized from Jeffrey Epstein's home during that initial investigation to him in the mid-2000s were message pads. And on those message pads, there were 2, if you look here, 2 messages from Donald Trump in November of 2004. This is around the time the two of them actually were competing to buy a property in West Palm Beach. Trump ultimately won out. He beat Epstein, and this is allegedly part of what made their relationship deteriorate.
Yeah, Donald Trump's talking.
Industry insiders have long spoken in whispers about secrets that power protects. Katt Williams and others have shared stories of colleagues silenced for speaking out. The theme is clear. The industry protects silence, sometimes at tremendous personal cost. Some individuals chose to remain quiet to survive. Others paid the price for daring to expose connections that others preferred to keep hidden. Emotional stories of personal sacrifice emerge, ethical dilemmas, lost opportunities, and careers that quietly ended. It paints a picture of a world where truth and survival rarely align.
Wrapped around was Bieber and Diddy. See, that's the problem with running your mouth, Vlad. That's the problem. You didn't realize on Monday that every word that you said was going to be invalidated.
The Epstein files touch more than Hollywood. They reach corridors of power. Both sides of the political spectrum had access to these files, yet delays and secrecy persisted. Documents show federal processes stretched over years, with transparency fading at each step. People notice the system's fatigue in releasing information.
The preservation of your inner child is responsible for dictating how long you live. Because there are certain things that your childlike self would like and expects and would like to see and would be excited about. You still maintaining that and being able to foster that as you increase in years is just super helpful. And you understand that the more books you read, that, that's the preservation of life. Who gives a what age you are, that's why health is wealth. You see, it's the ability for you to smile and go out in the sun and enjoy the things that are free. You got to have enough money to do the free stuff. You see? Yeah. And so all of that is tied to your childlike self, the things that matter to you. Then you have to constantly feed that and give that the freedom to try something and not do well at it, and then figure out, why didn't I do well at that? Well, I could quit, but I could also try to get better. How could I possibly get better? What would make this a better situation? And so carrying that with you in each of your endeavors, that's what I'm trying to show to the people that I represent.
And questions began to surface about how institutions protect themselves. The scope of secrecy extends far beyond entertainment, revealing systemic issues that few dare to challenge. Some of the most powerful individuals, from billionaires to influential media figures, appear in documents and emails that barely see the light of day. News coverage is sparse and public curiosity grows. People notice the silence of the press, the slow trickle of information, and the sense that some names are largely protected. Social media speculation fills the gaps as questions begin to surface about how wealth and influence shape what is seen and what is hidden.
Tonight, the Department of Justice releasing their final batch of files connected to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. New emails from 2012 and 2013 show billionaire Elon Musk and Epstein coordinating a possible visit to the financier's infamous island. Musk asks when the wildest party will be. In another exchange, Epstein telling Musk there is always space for you and says he will send a heli for him. It's not clear if Musk ever visited the island. Musk's name has popped up in prior releases, including from the House Oversight Committee's release from the Epstein estate. He did not respond to NBC News' request for comment, but previously called Epstein a cretin and said he never advised him. Musk told Vanity Fair that Epstein tried repeatedly to get him to his island, but he declined. Emails also show Trump Cabinet Secretary Howard Lutnick coordinating a visit in the Caribbean in 2012. It's not clear if the meetings happened. Lutnick claimed to have cut ties with Epstein in 2005.
My wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
But the emails show drink and lunch meetings being arranged between the two well into 2012. A Commerce Secretary spokesperson said in a statement, quote, Secretary Lutnick has had limited interactions with Mr. Epstein in the presence of his wife and has never been accused of wrongdoing. The drop also includes a spreadsheet summary of complaints made to the FBI's National Threat Operations Center. It contained allegations against former President Donald Trump and former President Bill Clinton. There's no indication the FBI turned up evidence supporting the tips. And a note on the file read some of these individuals are reporting secondhand information and determined some of the tips were not credible. The DOJ later temporarily pulled the file without explanation. Both former presidents have denied.
Katt Williams' warnings now resonate louder than ever. Clips from past interviews juxtaposed with current scrutiny, showing that the truths he hinted at cannot be ignored. Celebrities once untouchable now face a spotlight that raises questions they cannot easily escape. Hollywood is uncomfortable now. The silence, the secrecy, and the protective networks are no longer enough. And as the Epstein files continue to ripple through the industry, one fact becomes clear. Some warnings, once dismissed, cannot be unheard. Strong, uneasy closing line. Power, secrecy, and silence. Hollywood has always relied on them. But tonight, the shadows are watching back.
Capable of delivering, then I also know to be judicious in who I'm picking to get that. If I know Katt, he's only comfortable if he got the drop on you when he come to get interviewed anyway, because he wants to make sure that you don't flip on him. But all Shannon was gonna get was a blessing, and that was all I was there to make sure that happened.